A word about MDH, first of all, is that from the 60s onwards, it was one of the main places for music in Manchester because all the clubs, most of the clubs have been shut down by the police under the Corporation Act of 1966. So one of the few venues that you could actually go and see live music was at Manchester University. And they also had the money to fund it as well.
Could you just tell us a little bit more about that Corporation Act?
Yeah. By 1965, there were and had been something like 200 beat clubs in the Greater Manchester area. And they sprang up and they disappeared and some stayed forever. But the Chief Constable, a man called Mackay, got incredibly paranoid. There were articles in The Guardian that were about where Nigerian students rubbed shoulders with secretaries from Timperley. And I think it was most definitely a fear of races mixing. That he got this fear. He was a racist. And he sent undercover police to investigate what was going on in the clubs. And then the stories that in the press had been quite positive suddenly switched into being very, very negative. So by 1965, there was what we would now call a media blitz about the clubs, how you could buy drugs, girls were being sold into white slavery, men of colour. I'm trying to remember the specific, the 40 Thieves Club on Fennell Street. The guy who ran it was a black man and was sentenced to some very long time in prison for giving drugs to a young white girl and all this kind of thing. Serif Bambo, his name was. There you go. So there was this sudden climate of fear about the clubs, and nobody realised at the time. He was able to get put through Parliament a special act to close down the Manchester clubs. I mean, it's unheard of. It's never happened again before, unless you count things like the repetitive beat acts. But they were all to do with, on a national scale, this was one city, one guy wanting to shut down the clubs. And the reason the clubs could operate was because they didn't need a licence. If you didn't sell alcohol, you could do what you wanted. And you were a private members club, you paid a shilling or something like that. You got a membership card and you went along and that was it. So suddenly in 1965 this act came, and then it was initiated on the 1st of January 1966. And overnight the police could object to the premises being run as a club if they had reason to believe that any of the management were associated with criminal elements. Or had criminal records. And so, apart from the Magic Village, well, it was still the Jigsaw in 66. Apart from the Jigsaw, which was where I hung out mainly, and the Twisted Wheel, still then on Brasenose Street, they were the only two clubs left. And it was like, we're not killing everywhere, look, you can go there or there. So MDH at Manchester University became a very important place to go to. It was your lifeline, your lifeblood, where you could get a fix of popular music.